So a couple of weeks ago, we took a look at an advertisement for the Nintendo 64 and the original PlayStation, the Super Nintendo, and the Genesis from Toys R Us one holiday season back in the 90s. It was a nice hit of nostalgia, but what it made me really think about are the changes we go through time to time with gaming overall. And right now, I think we're heading for one of the biggest changes completely in gaming. It's making me feel a bit old compared to everything else going on right now. And it's not to say that we haven't had large shifts in gaming before, whether it's digital downloads, DLC, or even service-based games becoming very popular. But this seems different to me, and we're going to go over that here today. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. So first of all, we have a bit of an update to the E3 situation. Talked about this in Newswave yesterday, how it appeared that they were going to have an online event. Might not be the case, actually. We can see this was tweeted out by Mike Futter. Says, this is spin I heard from sources in mid-November before Omicron's emergence at the end of that month that the ESA had abandoned their dates for the LA Convention Center. And that, of course, where they'd be holding E3 itself with the big in-person event, all the advertisements and stuff. A lot of times we'll even see pictures of large building side advertisements going up a week or so ahead of the event. And it's usually a pretty big spectacle. A lot of people converge there and share notes and do different negotiations and dealings for developers and publishers. It's really a big networking event. And then over time, just gamers, fans got to attend and play the different games on the show floor or check out some of the really cool builds that these companies will do, like Nintendo, where they might build out entire Mario or Zelda section or something. But it does appear that E3 is struggling pretty badly, as you'd expect, at a time where it would mostly be a digital presence. They have not had an in-person event for a while. This would be the third year where they would not be able to do like a large-scale convention with people actually showing up from all over the world. So E3 would have to figure out how they could exist online and still make it feel like it's worth the millions of dollars that large publishers have to pour in to attend. And now several people online are basically saying E3 appears to just be dead. Like, we're just not going to have E3 this year, and if that doesn't happen, does it ever come back? I mean, think about it. We're 5 months out right now, and the ESA has not been able to respond if there is an online event. Like, that seems last minute at that point if they decide to do it in the coming months. And remember, a lot of these larger companies, publishers, developers, even small indie companies who have to budget in order to be a part of the show, they would be scrambling to get this done. So at this point in time, I think E3's done. And, I mean, that's a big deal. Right, we've had E3 for so long, it's like the mid-90s, and there have been so many big-time announcements. We always look forward to it every year for the most part. I know there have been some down years for E3, like the online E3 that happened last year wasn't great. A lot of big publishers showed up with, shows that didn't really have a lot, but most of us understood because of what was going on with remote work leading up to that in the prior year, and it's just being difficult to get games developed and put out there. But a year without E3 does feel like it's missing something. So I wonder if maybe Jeff Keighley would expand Summer Game Fest. I mean, he was able to do the Game Awards in person and people attended that. So I don't know, maybe Jeff can figure that one out, or who knows, maybe the ESA decides to move E3 and they relaunch it and they can come up with something there. Or maybe they figure out how to make it work in an all-digital future, which is what we're about to lead into. See, because you guys know I've been a big proponent of physical games. I just prefer to have them on my shelf and just collect them over time. I mean, I've even gone back to the GameCube to try to fill out that collection, and that's become increasingly difficult with how prices have gone with that system. But it's hard to not notice the massive shift that is going on right now with gamers who prefer digital copies of games. I mean, we're seeing that now where it's overtaking physical sales pretty much across the board. And that even comes down to releases, because if you're a publisher or an indie developer, I mean, you're going to release a digital game first and foremost if you're unsure as to how well it's going to do, or if it's a smaller title. Like I said, an indie title might be $20 or $30. But like, take a look at this. This is from Matt Piscatella saying, due to my release count, counting again, 2021 saw a big increase in total video game titles released, up 64% versus 2020. So a lot of games coming out on different platforms, with a big drop in the percentage of titles that had a physical release, under 10%. Switch digital exclusives did the heavy lifting, went from 357 in 2020 to 980 in 2021. And I mean, if you think about the Switch now, the eShop is very open. We know this. You scroll through it, there's a lot of junk in there, but they are seeing a lot of releases. Some days you'll see 30 or 40 games just pop up in the recently released section. Like I said, there's a lot of shovelware in there, but they're all digital-only games for the most part. So you do see publishers start to put out more and more games, which of course is increasing the overall digital versus physical sales ratio. And on top of that, we see the service-based games continue to grow in popularity, and we see subscription services continue to explode in terms of their subscriber counts, especially something like Game Pass that appears to be directly tied to something like the Xbox Series S being an all-digital system, which we launched this generation with all-digital platforms on both the Xbox and PlayStation side. And once that happened, I looked around and said, wow, this might really be the last generation for physical games when it comes to Sony and Microsoft. Nintendo hasn't quite gone in that direction just yet. It remains to be seen if they're going to try to do an all-digital Switch. I'm not necessarily sold on them doing it just yet. I mean, maybe they try it next generation, but Nintendo does tend to lag behind pretty much all companies when it comes to online in general. So maybe at one point they will, because if Microsoft and Sony decide that's it for physical games, we're not going to be doing it anymore, or publishers just decide, hey, we're not selling physical copies anymore because people are more interested in playing Call of Duty Warzone, or they just see such a decline in physical sales, there's like, it's not worth all of the logistics that go into putting discs out there and shipping them to different stores and getting them stocked. So maybe eventually Walmart or Best Buy or whoever, GameStop even, just stops having physical copies for Sony and Microsoft. And if you see that from Walmart and other big box stores, they might just not really carry video games anymore. You could see Nintendo just kind of hang out there by themselves, then eventually that section just gets faded out, and hey, Nintendo's like, well, I guess we got to go all digital as well. That's something that could happen in the future. And something else that's popped up here, and I had heard a lot of rumors about this for a bit now, and I was like, that would be the thing that would bridge mainstream to all of these NFTs and blockchain gaming that we're hearing about. That's the biggest thing now, is there's still that barrier for mainstream consumers when it comes to this stuff. We all hear about it because it gets thrown around on Twitter. These companies will release these letters that are mostly directed to gamers who are really plugged in online, like Square, where they detail this entire future of blockchain and NFTs and metaverse. And we see Konami with their Castlevania Anniversary it was just NFTs. Well, enter GameStop. So this is something that, like I said, I had heard about, but GameStop entering NFT and cryptocurrency markets as part of turnaround plan. This was released with Wall Street Journal here. The retailer is launching a division dedicated to the buzzy new technologies amid a push to turn a profit. I mean, let's be real. GameStop is desperate. If they think this can turn around their business or future-proof them going forward with an all-digital future, that's something that gets brought up a lot with big box stores or physical stores like GameStop is, what do you do when everything is just digital? Because, like I said, that's kind of what a lot of people are envisioning that we're heading towards. Well, GameStop said, well, I guess we'll just look at NFTs and cryptocurrency. And if they start to be able to sell that even in stores, which is an interesting future as well, right? You walk into GameStop, you don't buy anything off the shelves. You just buy a digital collectible of maybe an avatar or a skin or something, and you just leave with that on your phone. I mean, do they really need a physical store then? I guess in their mind, they're bridging it between the physical store and the digital metaverse, but then they would bring it to the mainstream. And I don't think they'd call it NFT or anything like that. They'd come up with some other catchphrase or marketing plan. But it does say here that they have actually hired more than 20 people to run the unit, which is building an online hub for selling or buying, selling, and trading NFTs of virtual video game goods, avatar outfits, weapons, all of this, right? And they're already close to signing a deal with 2 different cryptocurrency companies. And I see a lot of people ask, why are these companies jumping into NFTs and hearing about Square maybe creating their own cryptocurrency and all these different things? To be honest, Wall Street Journal summed it up very well here in this last paragraph. They say, by getting into the crypto and NFT space, while it is still in its infancy, GameStop hopes to avoid missing out on opportunities to be part of a budding trend as it did with computer game downloads about a decade ago, the people familiar with its plans said. The biggest thing here is GameStop does indeed have FOMO, or fear of missing out. If we don't jump on this now and it becomes a big thing, we'll be left behind once again, which, as I say here, with game downloads, I mean, GameStop did lag behind adapting to that. They figure here, if they can get ahead of this and already be the main place for trading these digital goods, then they'll be okay going forward into a future that looked very uncertain for a store that sold physical games. Now, there was this tweet that I saw that made me think a little bit about this. This was from Rob, Rule of Two Review. Make sure you check him out over on YouTube. But he said, the game industry and hobby is becoming less recognizable to me every day. I relate to it less and less with each piece of news we see. This is about like the Ubisoft court stuff where they're selling NFTs for like skins or pieces of equipment for Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And I thought about that and I said, you know what? Maybe we are just getting old. And like from what we remember with gaming, even when we first got into it with maybe the Super Nintendo or the Nintendo 64, the GameCube, maybe even the early PS4 days. But if you got in right when like the 360 came out, which was 15 years ago, gaming has changed drastically even since then. I mean, that's right before we had the introduction of microtransactions, DLC, service-based games, NFTs, blockchain, now all this stuff. That has all happened in the last 15 years or so. It's incredible stuff how much things have shifted from when some of the people who are a bit older got into gaming. And maybe that's what it is. It's becoming less and less recognizable to us, and it's becoming less and less about the games. So it's odd, and I'm not really sure where gaming is going to head during this generation, but I do believe that there is a massive change, a massive shift in gaming overall. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. How do you think things are going to play out over the next 5 or even 10 years? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.